Derbyites, Derbyites, Derbyites. We are here to discuss what I consider to be probably the best reality TV show on air right now. And I am with this group of crazy, wicked people who love the show just as much as I do. I've got Latasha Ford, I've got Marcus James Dixon, and Denton Davidson.
Traitor.
Welcome everybody to the chat. Latasha, what are you drinking today?
Listen, I'm sipping on some tea because we are about to spill all the tea about the Traitors.
Yes.
So let me take a sip.
I love it. So there's so much to talk about. We're halfway through the season, basically. And I'm really impressed with season 2. I think it's a huge improvement on an already very strong season 1. And, compared to other versions of this show in the UK, in Australia, I think this is probably the strongest. So we have so much to talk about, guys, and Latasha. So where should we begin? I think that we should talk about Alan Cumming, because I was initially quite skeptical about whether he was going to phone this in. He wasn't really into it. This is just a side job for when he's actually being a thespian. But I feel like he's really going for it. And he's actually a really good host who adds so much more to the show. What do you guys think?
So first and foremost, I absolutely, and I did mean to cut you off, Denton. That was very intentional. I'm obsessed with his fashion, just like I'm sure half the rest of the world. I love his outfits. I love his hair. I love the energy that he's bringing. And my puppy is actually a little afraid of him because anytime I'm like preparing to get ready to kind of dig into the show and binge watch an episode or 3 or 4, and his face is on the screen, Nova starts barking at the TV. And I'm like, girl, it's just Alan.
Wow. Wow. I mean, I bark at the TV sometimes when he's on there, so that tells you something.
I think he's fun. I mean, I think if there's anyone that could and should be able to take RuPaul down one day, it could be Alan Cumming for this. And the Traitors has blown up this season. Last year was popular. I got to it late last season. Like somehow the season had ended and I binged the whole thing, and it wasn't so big that I knew how it was going to end. So this season I was just like, wait, after that, I binged all of them, the Australian versions, the UK versions, all of that's on Peacock. So if you don't have the patience, like I didn't have the patience, there's all these other seasons just streaming on Peacock.
Yes, so at Gold Derby, I had to interview Alan Cumming, and so I'm like, well, let me watch an episode or 2 of The Traitors. This was last year, to see, what the show's about, what he does in the show. And I was so addicted, I watched the entire thing in maybe a day or 2 days. And I mean, he's the nicest person in real life, and he's so duplicitous and villainous on the show. I love him. And he told me in the interview it's the campiest thing he's ever done, and he's done a lot of camp in his life.
Yeah, he is more camp than a row of tents, and yet this is one of the most campiest things he's definitely ever done. The costuming is great. The writing, things that he has to say are fantastic. I just feel like the Emmy voters really need to get on board. It was completely shut out of what the Emmys that we just saw for season 1. I'm hoping that Emmy voters actually start watching other networks and platforms apart from Netflix, Amazon, HBO, because I feel like we are just, we're witnessing a very, very cool show with a great host. It should be nominated in both categories, competition program and reality host. You all
I agree. It actually
100%.
won casting at the Emmys, so it didn't get completely shut out. But of the main categories it needs to get in this year, it probably should win, if we're being honest. It's the #1 streaming show right now for unscripted in the US. So a lot of people are watching it this year.
That's impressive. That's really good for Peacock. I think they've got a real hit on their hands, and that means there'll be lots of seasons to come. I'm curious actually what you guys think of this question, Latasha. do you like it how the contestants are all reality TV stars, or do you prefer to watch a show where they're just unknowns and maybe they're amping up more of the crazy that you're not expecting? What's your preference?
I think go for wherever the personality is. I mean, let's be real. People who are typically, reality TV stars or has, fulfilled shoes like that at one point or another, it makes for good TV, right? Because these are people who aren't afraid to like show up and show out on the camera in front of the world. They just kind of, to a certain extent, could care less, don't give a damn like what the world thinks about them. So I think it personally makes for fun TV, because they're carefree individuals. And I just think with a show like this, you need that. You need the personality, you need that energy. Like, listen, I'm here for all the housewives on the show.
Oh,
Especially my Phaedra.
Oh, let's talk about Phaedra. She is my favorite by far. Every time she's on the screen, I am transfixed. What do you think, Denton? Are you a fan?
Yeah, I mean, I'm someone who, by choice and on purpose, I watch so much television. I've purposely avoided the Housewives because I know that's just a rabbit hole that I'll never climb myself back out of. So I've never seen any episode of the Housewives. But I have to
Me
say,
neither.
Phaedra is one of my favorites. And just to talk about the casting briefly, I think either go all in like they have this season, because last season I think mix or go all with fresh faces like the other countries have done. Because last season when they're mixing it, it is very obvious. Like one of these vets has to be a traitor, and one of the newbies has to be a traitor. It sort of limits things down a little bit. So I thought last season was a little mismatched. So, and this is like All Stars, and it brings together all these fans of Big Brother and Survivor and Housewives, people that don't watch these shows, but they're all coming together to watch the challenge. The Bachelor is there. And how did this guy from the UK Parliament end up on the show? Where did he come from?
John?
Yeah, well, how did they get John on there?
Listen, let's real quick about John. So first of all, he's my absolute favorite. John am I the only one who finds him absolutely hysterical? He has literally fell on his face 2 times. And I'm just like, John, get with the program. Like, John, will you please stop falling? So I'm waiting on the next episode for him to trip and fall.
I love how in the first episode he breathed a little bit too hard and Janelle immediately clocked him as a traitor. And he's like, oh, no, it's just my asthma. But to answer the question about reality versus non-reality, I think as long as the non-reality people are not like these weak people who think that lying is wrong. Like, remember the people in the final 3 with Suri last year? I can't even remember their names, but they're like, she lied to us, she betrayed us. Dude, you're on a show called The Traitors. Suck it up. And they even had someone this season, Deontay, who couldn't deal with it and he quit. And it's like, at least he quit early instead of, sticking around. If you can't,
and he's a fighter.
He's a boxer, right? He's not even on a reality show.
Listen, I have to cut in with Deontay because am I the only one who's like, okay, first of all, why even come on the show? And listen, love you, Deontay. Just saying, it's reality TV. Just like you said, to piggyback off, you pointed out the fact that Marcus is the Traitors. Of course, there's deception, lies, people going through a roller coaster of emotions. Ain't nobody got time for you to be breaking down, crying, and leaving the show. You took up somebody else's space.
Exactly.
I just thought, calm down. It's a show. But anyway, it's a really good cast, and I agree with what Den's saying. Either go all in or don't. The UK version for season 2, which I'm currently binging and was just a huge hit, and all over social media, people were screaming about how it's the best reality show ever made, blah, blah, blah. They're pretty much all unknowns, and that's good. In the Australian version, season 2, we had a few people like actors and someone from Below Deck Mediterranean and stuff like that. But in this, it's pretty much all reality except for Marcus Jordan, he's a basketball player. Deontay's a fighter, and John from the UK House of Palms. So random, but good casting.
But Marcus Jordan is Michael Jordan's son, and he's dating Larsa Pippen, who's Scottie Pippen's ex-wife. It's very messy. I mean, there's reasons to bring these people together. But all these reality stars, they started as fresh faces on their respective reality shows. So these, you have to get out there somehow. So it's not a bad thing if they want to next season go with a whole new cast. That would be fine with me.
Yeah, they can mix it up. Let's talk about who's been eliminated so far. So I was very happy to see Johnny Bananas murdered. Bananas. And he was from The Challenge, which I hadn't seen yet. Then Peppermint was banished. I was really disappointed with that. I'd liked having someone from RuPaul's Drag Race on the show representing.
They need more drag queens for sure.
I think they should bring on. Imagine the drama and the tea that is going to be spilt and the glitter. I think we need to see more drag queens, and I think Peppermint was a good addition. Unfortunately, she was banished so early. Then we had Marcus Jordan, Max from Dancing with the Stars, Deontay quit. Then Ekin-Su, she was from Love Island, I think. Then Larsa Pippen, Tamra Judge, and Janelle Bezina. So they're all gone. I think the Traitors are doing a really good job so far. What do you think, Marcus? I'm really impressed with what they're doing so far.
I mean, it's looking bad for Dan next week, but as of right now, they're all still in it. And I just want to say, like, Phaedra, you mentioned Phaedra earlier. I had no idea who this was before I watched the show, and she is my favorite now. She's so fantastic. And when she found out Ekin-Su was gone, there's this clip now that's going viral on the internet where she's like, "Oh Lord, not Ekin-Su, not Ekin-Su." I've seen that probably 100 times, and I'm gonna watch it 100 more. It's so good.
And how about when she read Parvati down for
Nobody likes you.
That was great. Nobody likes you, Parvati.
And Denton, to kind of, piggyback off that, and I love the way she also kind of threw Dan in there really quick. I think she said, "And you too, Dan," after she read Parvati. I'm like, I don't think. So with that being said, do you guys think that Parvati and Dan are still going to move forward with trying to eventually get rid of Phaedra? Because she's on to Parvati for sure.
I think Parvati's too smart, and she knows Dan is now on his last leg. Dan is not playing a good game. He's pretending he's playing a great game. He really thinks he is, but if they don't get rid of him after what happened with Janelle last week, I want to talk about Janelle for a second and her elimination. This is what she did wrong. She exposed Dan for what he was, and she had people believing her, but then she got too hot-headed and she went after CT, and then she called Sandra a traitor, and then all of a sudden you have 3 people that are now against you and defensive that are all going to turn on you, and once the tables start turning, this is a game where the numbers matter. So people all just were like, okay, well, I guess we're just going to stay safe and get rid of Janelle. She should have left CT and Sandra alone and just focused her energy on Dan. And I think that's where she really went wrong. And it's going to be interesting next week now or this week, because Peter, the Bachelor, who knew this guy was so smart, he had planted all these seeds to see if they vote up. Is it Bergie? Bergie. And I thought he was talking too much. I was like, you're telling too many people. But now it looks like Dan's gonna fall for that, and Bergie has the shield. So if Bergie comes back, it's going to be interesting to watch Peter see the faces of all these people he told, and where he could go wrong. And this is like how Dan can survive. I'm interested to see if Peter actually just goes gunning for Dan straight ahead, or if they once again get swayed and go after CT instead, because they also think CT is a traitor. So will Dan survive another week? Regardless, his time is limited.
I loved all of the drama that came about because of the shields being a mystery this week. And I do feel like, hey, producers, make the shield a mystery every single week. Like, make the traitors have to guess who has it and who doesn't have it. I think it's way more, it's a better show that way if they don't know exactly who's safe.
I agree with you.
So who's still a dark horse? I remember we were talking, the four of us, last week about Sandra, who is one of the biggest stars on this season, given her history on Survivor. But she hasn't had a lot of screen time, has she, Marcus? Why is that?
Oh, going into the season, she was my favorite, and I'm a little disappointed she's not been shown very much. But maybe that means she's going to make it, far in the competition, and they're saving her scenes for later. But I do love the Janelle Sandra fight at the round table where they're both just yelling at each other, calling each other names, and blaming each other for being traitors, and neither of them is a traitor. It's just genius
You're a
television.
bitch. She was like, "You're a bitch." No, you're a bitch.
I mean, we live for this
And she
stuff.
drank the water, and Janelle's like, "Oh, are you nervous because you're a traitor?"
No, I'm thirsty, bitch. Yeah, I love that stuff. It's so good.
It's so good.
You know what else, by the way? I have a bit of a confession. With shows like this, sometimes I zone out during challenges because sometimes they're a little boring and I'm like, just get on with it. I just want to see the intrigue and the backstabbing and the social game. Like that happens a lot on Survivor for me. After all these years, I'm like, okay, here's another challenge. Let's just get through it. But in this, the challenges are really, really compelling. That challenge in the graveyard with the light, what? Wow, I was blown away by how compelling that was. Do you guys enjoy the challenges, or are you challenge skeptic?
That was my favorite challenge so far. That graveyard one with the light, I wasn't crazy about the most recent challenge, like with the bird sounds. I'm like, okay, this is getting a little cheesy. Let's just kind of get to, the breakfast and the round table. I want the drama, but the graveyard with the light, that was the best for me so far.
Yeah, absolutely.
I liked I think Rob, you mentioned this to me in a chat about the funeral procession and everyone wearing the black, and then they have to answer questions. I think that was my favorite so far. And is there an Emmy category for best costumes in a reality show? I think there is, and I think the Traitors needs to submit that funeral episode because those costumes were amazing,
unbelievable. Imagine I imagine that they would have had to film that a few times. It was quite staged, but it worked, and it was just so compelling to watch and so interesting and riveting and super camp. And they all kind of played the part because they're all generally TV stars. They know how to play the part. They're not just some boring person from Missouri. Yeah, I was really interested in that as well. So I'm looking forward to what's to come. I'm curious if I'd like you all to tell me who you think the real dark horse here is to take this all out. I have a theory. If it's not one of the Traitors, because we don't know how that's going to pan out. Parvati, the Black Widow, and Phaedra, I think, are going to survive for some time. I think you're right. Dan is in trouble, or Morgan Spector's Walmart twin. But I feel like, for me, Pete is the dark horse. What do you think, Latasha?
Yeah, I agree. First of all, I have a crush on him. I feel like I'm always crushing on somebody, right?
We're talking Peter the Bachelor, right?
Yeah.
Yes. I think so far he's really surprising people. And if everybody's not caught on to how low-key strategic he is, is something wrong with them. I see him going extremely far. I really do. I am interested to see how Sheree will go down, just because it's interesting that they're pointing out the fact that Dan is, first of all, I think it's clear as day that Dan is a traitor. I'm surprised he's still there. It's so clear to me. But it's so ironic how they're, barking on him being somewhat quiet pretty much, but they're not pointing out the fact that Sheree is quiet as well. So I'm interested to see how she ends up going down. And I wonder if anybody's eventually going to catch on to Phaedra anytime soon. Although I see her going far.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, Denton, do you feel like the Real Housewives clique will help her stay in for a bit longer?
I think it'll help her a little bit, but Janelle was right about the Housewives. They're not smart about this gameplay. And it would be interesting to see if Phaedra was a faithful, where she would have fallen, because she's given this benefit of being a traitor and being on that other side. But the remaining housewives are just eating up whatever Dan says, and MJ. I mean, they're just, and if I went into that house, he would be suspect number one. As soon as I saw the cast, I would be like, the first person I do not trust in here is Dan. Out of the entire cast, he would be the last person I ever trust. I do agree that Peter's the dark horse. Because he's so smart and everyone knows he's a faithful. He would be the perfect recruit. If the traitors need to pick someone up when Dan's gone, I will say if anyone cuts him, it's going to be Parvati, because you notice at the end of the last episode when they compared notes and Dan and Parvati realized that Peter had told them the same thing. Right away, Parvati said, "Oh, so he's lying." And Dan was like, "Oh no, I trust him. Like, I'm gonna vote for Parvati." Instantly was like, "Okay, so he's full of it." So if she's smart, will murder him next.
Wow, I never considered that really. That went over my head. She's a really smart player. We've seen her kill it in the past. I mean, the fact that they brought her on as a traitor, as a recruit, was probably not a good idea because she will devour everybody in sight.
He's also good to murder because no one thinks he's a traitor. Like she's not going to murder Sandra because Sandra has a bullseye on her. Like it makes no sense to murder people that are going to be banished.
Yeah. And one thing I do like about her is how low she would go, Parvati. Like, she's willing to go. I mean, hell, she talked about taking Phaedra out, and that's like her sister from another mister, but I'm like, damn, like she'll take it there. She's going as far and as low as she can possibly go, but that's what it's all about.
100%. I'm all for it. I am ready. One final question is, what's the deal with bringing in someone halfway through like Kate Chastain from Below Deck and from season 1 of The Traitors? I was surprised. What's that all about?
I have a theory that it's possible. I mean, this is just me. Is it possible she had COVID and they said, "Oh crap, like we want you on the show. Let's just wait for you to get healthy and then we're going to bring you in when you're healthy." I have no evidence of that whatsoever. That's just what I was thinking. And then another thought I had is maybe she was supposed to be like a replacement traitor. If one of these traitors was eliminated, instead of recruiting someone, the producers would just throw in a traitor and say, "Okay, here's your next one." So I don't know. It is weird they brought her in late. It seems like none of the cast members really care that she was added late. They're just like, "Okay, cool. You're new to the game." I would be mad. You skipped 5 banishments, you skipped 5 murders, and now you're here. That's not fair. But they all seem okay.
I mean, a replacement for Deontay.
I thought they brought her in because Deontay chickened out. No shade,
that could
Deontay.
be.
I'm just saying.
That could be.
And she was just the hottest mess on season 1. She's the one that I fell in love with on season 1 because she was just a disaster. Like, she was funny. And she also was like low-key nailing who the traitors were, and nobody would ever listen to her, which was the hilarious part of it all. So I think she's just entertaining, and then they lost Deontay unexpectedly and still went through with murders and banishments. So maybe they just... you would think that they would have, maybe they didn't want to do a full alternate of someone who wasn't familiar with the show at all.
Maybe.
I don't
know. I think all the theories make sense.
I love in season 1 when she was sabotaging the challenges and she just didn't want to be there at all, it seemed like, but she was such good television. I'm so glad she's
That's
back.
what we want. And look,
but I just want to say about this show, there's no strategy. Like, there's no rhyme or reason, because anything that you can say makes someone sound like a traitor. Like, the same argument could be like, well, why would I do that? It would make me look like a traitor. Like, there's nothing you can do. The only somewhat normal argument I could see is when people are just saying Dan doesn't do anything and doesn't say anything. He's so quiet. That's as close as I could think, because anything else you could just argue, oh, like, a traitor wouldn't do that. And then they're like, oh, exactly, a traitor wouldn't do that. So they're doing it. Like, it just,
so they're a traitor.
There's no rhyme or reason.
Yeah.
Mike, I have a question. Like, what's the incentive for these people to get the traitors out? Because they're just going to be replaced by another traitor. So there really is no reason to get a traitor out, is there? I mean, at the end, if there's a traitor remaining, they win. But again, if you get one out, they're going to be replaced. I don't understand that part of the game.
That's fascinating, because then what's the whole point is to get rid of the traitors, but they just keep adding them. So yeah.
That is a good point. That's a good mention, Marcus.
If NBC Universal could let us know.
Which exit do you guys think has been like the most dramatic? I think, who do you think, Rob?
Peppermint. When she flipped that hair and did a little sachet away, I was like, yes.
Yes. I definitely think Peppermint also. I'm like, one hell of a way to go out.
She's just looking at them like, you idiots, and left.
I loved how Janelle went out because she was just so confident about who was the traitor. And she was actually right, it was Dan. But everyone thought that she was. And so far they've been wrong every time. And I kind of love it. I kind of want the traitors to keep winning. Are you guys all rooting for the traitors, or are you rooting for the faithful?
Oh,
I want Dan to go. I'm over Dan. I would like him gone, and I want him replaced. And no shade at him personally, but I think his game is just too far gone that I would like to see him go and see how it progresses from there. I liked Janelle's exit, and yeah, I lost my train of.
I feel like if Dan can pull this back next episode and following, if he can actually make this work for him, then I'll be really rooting for him. But if this is his time, then see you later. And I'm all in for Phaedra. I just find her so fun.
Yeah. Dan has been in this exact same position before on Big Brother. I don't know. I think Denton, you watched it. I don't know if Latasha and Rob did. He had one foot out the door, and he hosted his own funeral, and he got everyone to like him at this funeral. And then he ended up surviving, and he ended up winning the game. So he's been in this position before where he was going to go home and he saved himself. And I don't know if y'all saw the preview, the trailer for next week. It looks like he throws somebody under the bus at the round table. So the question is this going to work, or is it just like a last-ditch effort to try to save himself and it'll fail?
I don't think he's leaving this next episode. I don't think so.
I have this feeling he's going to get it flipped and CT is going to go.
I think CT is out. I do. I agree with that. I think CT is next for sure.
And Max, that's what I was going to say. Poor Max. He was the worst at defending himself.
It was horrible.
He was like, say something, like do anything, and he just sat there like.
He just
I just think he couldn't believe that it was happening.
Yeah.
I think Max was he was so caught off guard, like so taken aback. He's just like, wait, like, how did this turn on me?
Yeah. And I just wanted him to be banished so that he could just do a pirouette or something, and then but that didn't happen. Yeah, so let's see what happens. I feel like we've got so much more to look forward to. Hopefully we can come back and do more of these and just kind of recap our favorite moments from the episodes that are remaining. But in the meantime, Derbyites, stick with us. This is where it's all happening for awards and reality TV. There's no better place than Gold Derby and these fine people, and we'll see you soon.